Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. We are continuing our 2023 craft fair series and we are doing this little project today. This project is inspired by, her YouTube channel is Faithfully Stampin, and this was heavily inspired by her. I found parts of her tutorial a little confusing, and so I'm hoping today I can kind of clear things up and make things a little easier. So this is just a quick look at what we're making. It stands up all by itself, and it's just a really sweet little gift. So I'm hoping it's a good craft fair seller. So to make that little project for today, you are going to need just a couple of supplies. Really, there's not a whole lot of supplies needed for this particular project. And you can get one of these out of a sheet of A2 sized cardstock, so regular letter sized cardstock in America. You're going to need one piece that measures 10.5 by 3 3/4, and then you're going to need another piece that measures 4 3/4 by 7. This is going to bake the easel part. This is going to make a pocket. So easel, pocket, okay? And then if you want to mat it, you need 2 pieces of designer series paper or patterned cardstock. One that is going to be this part back here. And this measures, wait for it, 3.5 by 3. And then one to mat the pocket, that measures 2 1/4 by 3.5. So that's all the stuff you need to actually make the project itself. So she put a larger sentiment on the top. I toyed with the idea of just leaving it plain, and I also toyed with the idea of putting like a tearaway calendar on the front, but I really liked this. I thought that was just really cute. So that's what we are doing today. That sentiment comes from a Pinkfresh Studio, just a hello, that has stamp stencils and dies with it. So I just used the stamp and the coordinating dies with it today. So to start this, we're gonna do this piece first. So this is the part that actually makes your easel. This is the 10.5 by 3 3/4. And we are going to score this at, it's very simple, 4, 8, 9, and 10. Okay? So this is the 10.5 by 3 3/4. We score it on the long side at 4, 8, 9, and 10. That piece is all done for now. This is the part that measures 7, excuse me, by 4 3/4. This is what makes the pocket, and you're gonna score it on the 4 3/4 side. You're gonna score it 1/2 inch. You're gonna rotate it 180 degrees, and you're gonna score it at 1/2 inch again. Then you're gonna flip it to your long side, and you're gonna score it at 2.5 and at 3. This makes your gusset to hold your post-it notes. And then you're gonna do some part scoring. So at 5.5, you're gonna score just down to that first horizontal score line. So at 5.5, just to that first horizontal. That's all we did. You can see that right there. Okay. Then in order to make sure I actually get it in the right place, I'm just gonna flip my cardstock, stick it back in, and do the same thing again. Just down to that first horizontal at 5.5. So it should end up looking like this. 2.5 and 3, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, and then partial scores at 5.5. This is essentially, we're going to cut this off. So all I'm gonna do is fold and burnish all of these. I'm just gonna fold and burnish all of these score lines that go all the way through. So I'm gonna fold this first one that has kind of the 2 larger flaps back on itself. Just making sure that I keep everything square. And then this forms like a accordion fold, an accordion fold. So first I'm gonna score on itself, then I'm gonna score or burnish backward. Then this little one, I'm gonna fold back on itself one more time. Got a little crooked here, but that's okay. That's okay. All right. This is actually going to form your glue tab. So on this one, I'm going to fold and burnish on all of the score lines that go all the way through, so not this little half score. just because that's actually going to be a cut guide for us. If you wanted to cut that in your paper trimmer, you absolutely could, but it's just easier for me to eyeball it and practice my scissor skills. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove these half scores right here. So I'm going to go right up to that score line and cut, and then I'm going to follow right along this score line. And all we're doing is removing that little section right there, okay? That's all we're doing. We're going to repeat that on this side also. Whoa, don't know what I was doing there. We're going to repeat that on this side also. Just going straight across that, as straight as you can get it, and then snipping off that little edge right there, okay? Now, the last little bit of cutting we're going to do is we're going to take this little square right here and we're going to make it into a tab, into a little glue tab. So I'm cutting to the right of that score line, to the left of this score line, and essentially all I'm going to do is notch so that I can remove those score lines. So that's all we're doing there. In fact, I'm going to need to do that just a little bit better so I can actually ensure that I remove that score line. So that's all we're doing. And we're going to repeat that on the other side. Cutting to the right and the left and notching in. This is called a miter cut. You're just creating a little edge. This is actually going to fold inside the box. So anytime you have something that folds inside to your inside of your project, in order to decrease bulk, you want to go ahead and miter that in. That'll give you a much cleaner and more professional finish. So that's all the cutting for here. There's no cutting on this, but there is some rounding of corners. So I have my We Are Memory Keepers corner chomp, and I am first going to try to get this to line up just a wee bit better because it looks a little wonky. I may have just scored it a little weird. Okay, let's see if that works a little better. Okay, so there's that. So you're going to fold this down, and this is going to be kind of the front of your little easel post-it holder. So all I'm going to do is round these top two corners. This corner chomper will go through this, no problem. I'm using the 1/2 inch round, but there is a 1/4 inch round. I used the 1/2 inch on the demonstration one I just showed you, but I like that deeper round on it. So there's that. So now this one, we're also going to round these two corners where we removed those little rectangles. We're going to round these corners also. I am going to try to straighten this out just a touch because it looks a little woppy jawed. Okay. All right. Feel a little better about live there. So all I'm going to do is use that same depth of corner rounder, and I'm going to round these top two corners here. Now I already rounded the top two corners on my pattern paper that's going to fit inside this pocket, okay? But first I'm going to put some double-sided tape on this little flap right here. I had to find it. My desk is like a trash fire, so I had to find it. I'm just going to run some double-sided tape along that edge. I'm putting it closer to the fold just because that'll give you a tighter look. A tighter finish. So I'm just going to burnish that down and remove the backer, and then I'm going to fold this over, and I'm just going to kind of stand it up and see if I can't just try to get that as straight as I can, and then I'll push it down. I do have a little bit of overhang on this side, but I'm hoping that my pocket covers a lot of that. So to put the pocket together, in order to have a more finished product, you want to make sure that this flap goes toward the back. You want it to go like this, toward the flap on the front of your pocket goes toward the back, and not like this, where the back of your pocket is going toward the front. Otherwise you'll see that seam in your finished product, and that doesn't look as nice. So in order to glue this together, I'm also going to do something a little different. So in her video, she tucked this all the way in the box, but if you put that in there, your Post-its or your pen can catch on it. So I'm going to actually tuck it back here. So that's just a little different. Not a huge, like, mind-blowing change by any means. She did all the hard work for me. So all I'm going to do is apply glue to that little tab and to this one, trying to get adhesive as close to that edge as possible. I'm using my little Paper Studio little glue bottles here. Again, so I'm going to tuck this on the outside of that little folder, and then I'm going to bring the front back. Okay, and all I'm going to do is make sure that my top is lined up. So if you have, maybe you didn't cut things right, or you know, as square as you could get it, I always make sure that my top looks nice, because I can always trim the bottom, and the bottom isn't as noticed as this top being weird. So just make sure your top's aligned. Give that just a second to adhere, and then repeat on this other side. So I'm going to apply adhesive to this little tiny tab. Okay, little tiny tab and the back. Get that little floppy thing out of the way. Make sure I'm actually in camera, because that's kind of a big deal. So again, we're going to pull that out. We're going to tuck that one in, and then your little tab, and then bring the front around, and then make sure that your top lines up, and then give that just a little bit of time to adhere. Okay. Oh, I got a little bit of glue right there. It's okay. All right. Okay, that is your pocket complete. So the next thing is to add your pattern paper if you so chose, which I did. I chose this particular pattern just because I felt like it was just a little bit more masculine, and I know masculine gifts are kind of hard for people to find sometimes, so I felt like I should do something that was a little more masculine, a little less feminine, which obviously I am more drawn to. So if you'll notice, I should have showed you before I put it together, but this pattern paper doesn't go all the way down to the bottom, and that's not a big deal because this front pocket covers it anyway, so that's not the end of the world. I'm just going to take my little bone folder and apply some pressure in there just to make sure it's burnished down, and then you can also apply your little one for the front of your pocket. This paper does not have like a right or a wrong way. It's a very forgiving pattern, and I have a tendency to choose those just because I quite often forget which direction to cut my paper, and I usually cut it wrong. So just put my bone folder back in there just to squish it around, make sure it was adhering right. Now we can adhere this to this. So what I would suggest is to align a corner and then go from there. So I am seeing that I've got a little bit of overhang on this top right here, but it's not a super big deal, and what I'll probably do is just try to center it. So all you're gonna do is apply some glue to the back. I am applying my glue where this is, just because this pocket, where this seam is right here in your easel, I'm gonna apply my pocket to that just because when it's on your desk, I mean, you're gonna be able to kind of see it. So if it's hidden behind here, I feel like it just looks a little bit nicer. It probably doesn't make that big of a difference, but in my mind it does, so that's what we're gonna do. So I'm just gonna use my wet glue again, just because this gives me just a little bit of time to move things around. Use my wet glue, and I'm gonna align these corners, these rounded corners, as best I can, and to make sure it is sitting flush on the bottom of my little easel here. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna hold that flat, and again use my little bone folder to help me apply some even pressure. Give me some good adhesion there. This is reptile glue. I found that works really well for me, and I like it. It's a strong adhesive. It dries fast, but not like super fast to where I don't have any time to like work with it, if that makes any sense. So here is one of those sentiments that I said came from that Pinkfresh Studio stamp set, and I'm just gonna wet glue that flat to this front right here. So I think that looks pretty good right there. Just make sure it's not all crooked and hold that down for just a second. All right, throw in your Post-its and a pen and you are all set to go. I have a full-size pen in here, but one of those little mini jelly roll pens would work really well. But there you go. Sits up on your desk just fine once you get all the stuff out of underneath it. And there you go. There is our finished project for the day. So I appreciate you spending time with me. I hope you feel inspired. Until then, we will see you next time where we continue our craft fair series. Thanks. Bye.